Welcome back. As we said before the break, on this episode we have a very special guest, someone we've been wanting to talk to for a while now. You know him from Instagram and TikTok as Places Forgotten. He is urban explorer extraordinaire Ben James. Ben, welcome to the Ghost Story, guys.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I am very, very excited to talk to you. Urban exploration is something that's always interested me, but I am far too cowardly and heavy to brave anywhere that might have compromised flooring. So I'm very, very eager to get into it with you. I guess an obvious question is, where did this start with you?
Well, when I was younger, everyone was playing sports. Everybody was playing sports. I liked video games and I liked horror films. And I remember being a child and there was a house near me, a very big house, and it was abandoned. And the story goes, there's always a story. I belonged to a brain surgeon who lost his family in a horrific accident, and he went mad and he lives in the house. So I was like, well, let's go and see. And we went, and he was actually living there, but he was actually a homeless person. And it transpired that the whole story was made up. But I think I was 11 or 12. And,
oh, wow.
And I went in on my own. My friends were too scared. And I think that kind of got me into it. And I thought, right, well, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to play football, or you guys know it is soccer. And I stuck with that. And the rest is history.
That's fair. I would choose that over football / soccer too. I choose that over. Yeah, no, that's fair. And so your early explorations were mostly UK based, but you've sort of expanded outward quite a bit now, haven't you?
Yeah. So I used to, when I started, I did UK, and I predominantly just did houses, and I thought they were the best things ever. And when I say houses, I mean houses that still had the clothes in the wardrobe, cereal in the cupboards, where everything was left, literally like witness protection or something had happened. There was and I really liked houses, and I got known for doing granny houses. That's what people would make fun of me. Oh, Ben, Ben does granny houses, dead people's houses. And then I got a bit more into the darker things, and I like medical. And so I thought, I'm fed up of England. I went to Europe, and now I do Europe and a lot in the States. And now I do the creepy stuff. And
so creepy stuff, you mean that like the hospitals and places like that, and the funeral homes?
Hospitals, funeral homes, asylums, mortuaries. I need to start mixing up my Instagram because 90% of it is funeral homes and morgues. I'm thinking people don't just want to see this, but I think people kind of do.
I think there's a huge appetite for it. I mean, obviously, you've got 1.5 million followers on TikTok. But there's something about the old medical places, the old hospitals and clinics. They've got this weird, Paul and I talk a lot, or have talked in past about Resident Evil, and they all kind of have that weird Resident Evil vibe, right? Like maybe something happened here that shouldn't have happened. And odds are, maybe like overbilling if you're in the States, but still, it just has that air of something forbidden about it. I think also because we don't get to see most of those places. We kind of come in for one or two little things, but we don't get to see every space, and obviously that's an opportunity you get.
There was a hospital I did in Spain, in Madrid, and I can name it because enough people know about it now. And it was actually an organ transplant hospital. It's actually on my TikTok, very, very one of the top videos, and that was a huge facility. And that had everything left from, all the equipment, the beds. It even had all the blood samples and everything left. That was literally like something out of Resident Evil, in Raccoon City. So that was amazing. But the hospitals are really, really good. There's one I did in Georgia, and it still had all the magazines in the rack in the waiting room from 2015. And it was like, this is amazing. It had all the x-rays and the patient files and the MRI scanner, that I obviously brought over with me. That's what people were saying. And yeah, it was just amazing, because a lot of these places are kind of locked up. I think they're meant to reopen. They never do.
Right.
And it's like walking into a museum that's off limits to the public. So I remember doing a live there, and I think I had something like 20,000 people on it. It was crazy. I didn't get any
Holy man.
donations. Nobody bought me a cup of coffee. Nobody. But they enjoyed the video, the live, so that's the main thing.
It's mad to me that something like that would be left.
There's a lot left. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, as organs in some of the videos I saw on your TikTok, you found actual organs.
Yes, yeah, that's been a few times. I'd like to say that was uncommon, but the morgue in Paris, that's actually gone now, so I can talk about that. That had bones left, and it had liver and lungs in jars from 1986, I think. And again, a lot of people say, "Oh, this is fake. This is fake." It's like, it's really not. I don't do YouTube. I haven't got a video up with a big red arrow saying shocked face. No disrespect. I've got a lot of YouTube friends. No disrespect. It's a running joke. And there was we went in there before lockdown, and we still went into the lab. We had to go in via the basement, and there was a brain on the side, and we're like, okay, So
Sure.
and we went back 2 years later, and it was still there. Everything was still there, like the bones and the brain, and that's happened a couple of times with organs and stuff. In the Spanish hospital, there was lungs in a case.
If I remember right, on one memorable occasion, you found a full-on body.
Yeah, that was actually in the newspaper, not because of me. Basically, we found it afterwards, and I thought that would have been good to know. We did a we don't have funeral homes in England, but it was a mortuary. And what had happened is the mortuary had closed, and they'd moved to an updated one. And poor lady, I think the family found it funny in the end. They'd forgotten their mum's body, and I think the family presumed the family lived overseas. Thought, oh yeah, they didn't know the morgue had closed, and the woman had ended up being in this fridge for I think 2.5 years. Yeah, so it was that was very different. That was very different. But the family actually reached out to me after, and they were actually found the whole thing. They were very, very good about it. They said, you know what, Mum would have found this hilarious. So that's why I can kind of laugh about it, because they were really fun. But yeah, that was interesting. But there's other people, there's other people in people I know in Flint, Michigan. They found a body in a funeral home. The person had come to service the lift, the elevator, and it had killed him. And they went in to explore it, and he was dead under the lift.
Oh my God!
Yeah, you should that's Nick. You should get him on here. He'd be a good guest. He can tell you that I wasn't there. He can tell you the story.
Yeah, yeah. No, okay. Well, we'll talk about that after the interview, because it's incredible that someone would go to a place, not come back, and not.
Well, okay. I made a joke with him. I said at least he didn't have very far to go. You're already in the funeral.
That's fair. That's fair.
Do you think that people find it very difficult to comprehend when you share this content, Ben, and your explorations? Because, like you've referred to there, and we were chatting earlier, we don't have that kind of concept of a funeral home where it's all set out and its business is dealing with the dead.
No. In England, we only have like co-op, and we have mortuaries, but we don't have funeral homes, which is so disappointing. Yeah, I think people do, and I think some people love to see it because they don't want to go themselves, but they can see it through someone else's eyes. But then it comes with criticism. You get a lot of hatred for doing it as well. You get a lot of people messaging you, how dare you, it's disrespectful. But I think, well, you're going and you're just going to document it. Where's the disrespect?
Yeah, surely the disrespect is on the establishment for leaving everything behind and treating these people with such disdain, because as we've said, there's clearly no respect, because we always think about patient confidentiality and, as you mentioned there, treating the dead with respect and looking after bodies. And yourself and others have proved that this clearly doesn't go on. Would you, when you're doing the explorations around the States, do you think that's something, because sometimes establishments or businesses will think it's cheaper just to close up shop and move somewhere else than it is to redevelop or knock something down?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, I think it's a mixture of things. I think the first thing is when some place is shut, it's in a hurry, and people will think, oh well, it's someone else's issue, someone else's issue. Oh, the caretaker will do it, and the caretaker doesn't do it, or the caretaker retires or passes away. And I think another side of it is, especially with the hospitals, they probably close, let's say for funding, and think, oh, we'll reopen in a month, and it never happens, and then what are you going to do? Are you really going to go back? You don't work there anymore. Why do you care? Um, and I can't really complain because yeah, I can say, oh, it's really bad all the stuff's left. But to be honest, I think some of the stuff I find and have found is amazing. I did a hospital outside of Washington, and that had a room with thousands of them on thousands of autopsy certificates from infants, and that's on my TikTok. And when I say autopsy certificates, I'm talking full on graphic, detailed reports with photos and everything. And actually, there were thousands of them. I have one framed in my kitchen. But yeah, yes, to an extent, yes, it's bad. There's all these autopsy certificates with names on from the 80s, 90s, but it sounds maybe a bit selfish, but it creates a lot of interest. People want to see that. What they rather see me go into an empty room, or hey, look, we're going to this room. Look at all the stuff we found. So it sounds a bit selfish and maybe a bit rude of me to say that, but I kind of get a real buzz on what I find. So I do like it.
Hey, that's fair. I'm curious, is that sort of an accepted thing within the Urbex community? Taking is obviously, as you say, there's thousands of these autopsy reports. Is that considered an okay thing to do? Is that common, or is that borderline?
What? The majority of people would say no, and a lot of people would say, "Oh, the tape from the Spanish hospital. Why would you take that? You shouldn't take things." Okay, but it's a tape. There was 100 tapes. No one's going to know tape. And for example, the autopsy certificate. Someone could say, "Oh, you'll ruin it for others." Let's say there was 2 of them or 3 or whatever. Yeah, taking one would make a difference. But when you've got a room with thousands of them, no one's going to notice one, and it's not like you're taking it for really personal gain. It's in a frame in my kitchen, and I admire it every day while I make my coffee. So for me, it was just a very interesting thing, and I treat it with respect. So no, I wouldn't encourage taking things because, to an extent, it is going to ruin things for others. But it's like having a field of sunflowers. If there's thousands of them, you want to take one home for a vase. Is anyone really going to notice? No. But then again, you could say, well, if 1,000 people took one, then it's different. But I don't think 1,000 people know where these places are, so that won't happen. And also, I think eventually you've got to think these places are going to be emptied out one day anyway. This stuff is going to be destroyed, so it's not going to be there forever.
I think that's one of the really beautiful things about what you do is you capture these moments in time.
Yes.
Because really, some of these places quite literally are moments in time. They were, you have stories on your TikTok of places that were abandoned just, one day. There are funeral homes where the owner just went off the deep end psychologically and just never came back. And if I'm not mistaken, there was more than one funeral home where that was the case.
Yeah, the funeral homes are weird. There was the morgue we just spoke about with certificates. I think the really weird thing is that still had the calendar up, and that was from I think 4 days before 9/11. The calendar was on the wall, and it's like, wow, that is really eerie. But yeah, a lot of the funeral homes, family run, and generally you've got embezzlement, fraud, mental illness that has caused them to close. You speak to the neighbors, you speak to family members, and you generally find the reason for it, because a lot of these businesses are very profitable, and then something goes wrong and they close, and you think, well, what's the reason for that? I did a funeral home recently in the Carolinas. I haven't posted it yet, and that still had all the hearses and all the caskets, and it still had the keys hanging up in the office for the hearses, and about 25 boxes of human remains, and still the whiteboard with the names on of the bodies they're taking today from 2015. So you think, well, what happened one day with why didn't they come back to work? And then you kind of do your investigation and you find out the backstory.
I'm curious, is the investigation, is that a common thing for urban explorers to do? Because although I'm not deeply familiar with the field, I know a handful of them, and I don't see other people doing that. So is that usual, or am I just finding the people who don't?
I think some YouTubers do. A good YouTuber, a friend of mine, Carter, Big Banks on YouTube. He does a lot of research. You got another guy, Jeremy, another good YouTuber. You know, a lot of them will put in the work because people will ask, "What's the story with this?" And they want to be able to tell a story. But I think some people will just say, "Oh, abandoned funeral home." But I like to kind of go into the reason of, okay, this is what happened, and I think it just makes it a bit more interesting for people as well. It's like you want to know the plot of a book, or you want to know the plot of a film before you see it. Here it is, and then people, I just think that they enjoy that a bit more.
I mean, I found it definitely added context, and it made it more significant than just, you know, video after video of empty places.
Yeah.
Because I think after a while, yeah, you're just looking at empty places. I mean, that's cool, but I was actually saying this to someone last night. We have an upper limit for pure wonder.
Yes.
And I think, you know, after a while, it just becomes samey. But if you've got something to engage with, I think it makes it much more memorable.
It does. It does. Like you said to me, this funeral home with the mental illness, and I kind of can think of the one that you were telling me. You know, people have like a reference point to go to, and it's like books on a shelf. It's, you know, oh, that is the book with this plot or that plot, and you kind of categorize it in your head.
Yeah. How do you choose the locations that you visit, Ben? Do you do any sort of recce in regards to a specific state in the US, or is it a kind of word on the street that people say, oh, this property is supposed to be really interesting? Or is it often just pure chance and you stumble across something?
You know what? Stumble across. I always find it funny when you see like a newspaper article and it's like, photographer stumbles across this morgue. And it's like, you didn't stumble across it. You went there to take pictures. You know, nobody stumbles. But no, to be fair, you can, especially in the States, you can do a lot of driving. And I found places just driving past, checked it out, and I've done it in Europe, and I'm like, oh wow, this is a mortuary, or this is an asylum. So, admittedly, yeah, there is some research that goes into it, but the community is very big. I've got some good friends in it, and I'm given help as well. And people will. I've got a friend of mine, Eric, who he's a courier, and he'll drive around. He'll go around all day, and he'll just stumble across places. Stumble, I'm using that word. And he'll go and he'll check it out, and then or other place people will find things on Google Maps. I found stuff on Google. I mean, it's very easy. Let's say, I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you're in Toronto. Okay, put in Google closed funeral home Toronto, and chances are, or closed diner, closed hospital, you'll find an article. Okay, brilliant. Let's pin it on maps. Okay, that looks quite over. And go and drive and have a look at it. It's as simple as that. So some research, some places you do randomly come across, but a lot of it is just putting a bit of time in. And there's a lot out there to be found, like more than people realize.
Is there a lot of competition within the community to find new spots?
It's like school, absolutely. You've got people that want to find the best spots. They want to be the first in. They want to be the first to post. They want to be the only person to post. Yes, it's very competitive, especially around YouTube. Yeah, because I can get it. People want the better pictures. They want to go to a place. Like, for example, there was a funeral home I did, and this is gone as well, so I can talk about this, in Orangeburg, in the Carolinas. And when I went, it was amazing. It had all the cars and everything was left. But then the week before, there was a room full of caskets, like 20, 30 caskets. When I went, they were gone. I think somebody took them. But then it's a case of, oh, well, when I went, it had the caskets. So it is that bit of competition. It's like, oh, that's cool. And sometimes there's that bit of, not jealousy, but thinking, oh, I would have liked to see it like that. But then you think, well, I'm lucky to see it anywhere it is. So, yeah, there is competition in every aspect of the hobby, unfortunately. But I think it would be like that in any hobby, you know, even if you're doing bird watching or something.
Yeah, or podcasting. I mean, there's
there we are. Yeah.
Have you ever kind of stumbled? I've said it again. That word.
It's okay. We're doing the trend now.
Have you ever come across anything like the famous footage from the guys in Australia who went into that dilapidated fun fair, and there was a shark in formaldehyde in a tank.
Oh, that was in Australia. Yeah, that was in the old SeaWorld, wasn't there? Well, no, I haven't. I mean, look, what have I found? I found brains, organs, bones, death certificates, chemicals, human remains. That's as bad as far as I found. I mean, when you do houses, there's all the personal effects. Even all the family photos, wedding photos. I never understand why people don't take wedding photos. False teeth, stuff like that. But no, I never found a shark. Like, the most stuff I found is in the funeral homes. But even I did a funeral home in the Carolinas, and that still had the jewelry from the dead people. The gold and the pearls and everything. But no, that one in Australia.
Yeah, they did. I think they crowdfunded it and got it rescued and repaired because it was leaking.
Yeah, so no, I've never found anything like that. I did find a human skull in a box in a funeral home. Like, that was obviously ex-display, but nothing as big as the shark, unfortunately. Would be nice. Maybe.
I think
you never know what you'll find.
Once again, it's one of those things that we just presume if somebody leaves a house or something, Ben, that they do take everything. But as we've mentioned here, I was walking to my local shops from where I live. I live in Sheffield city centre, and I walked through this little gym on my way there, and there was a big skip that just appeared one particular day, and they were obviously clearing a house out. And then the following day, when I went past, on top of it was an urn. So it was clearly somebody's ashes. It was in a big decorative box, like this was obviously like a couple of feet tall. It was all beautifully decorated. It said R.I.P. Ken on it and had lovely pictures. Yeah. And you just think, Ken. Well, does nobody in the family want this? Or once again, I think we always presume that when somebody passes, there's going to be a member of the family behind. But often these places get left because there isn't that follow-on, and it's just left.
No family. Yes, obviously no family. Maybe had a falling out with the family. Family lives overseas. I mean, the amount of funeral homes I've been in with boxes of human remains, and a lot of funeral directors reach out to me, and they're like, "It happens all the time. They just don't come back for the ashes, or there's no one to collect." I mean, that's sad about Ken in the skip. Somebody could have thrown him out by the river at least. But no, it happens a lot. When you do this hobby, you think, why doesn't, like I said, the wedding photos, the graduation albums, wedding rings, why does nobody want this stuff? Why are you not taking this stuff with you? I did a house in England a couple of years ago, and I still remember it was really weird. In the upstairs child's bedroom, it had on by the window, like 4 boxes of pet remains of, the cats and the dogs. And I think, why wouldn't you have taken those? It was the weirdest thing, because animals are family.
Yeah.
So
I was really surprised to know that places like this exist in the UK. We sort of don't, like, we associate places like here, like Canada and the US, with lots of wide open space that you can just not use. But I always assumed that, in the UK, there was a lot more, this kind of thing just couldn't or wouldn't happen, or is less likely to happen because of the fact that space is at a premium. So that was really educational for me, learning that from your back catalog that no, that's a thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, people still do houses all the time in the UK. I see it on Facebook, and I'm not really interested in them now because it's, I like other things. But all the time, like full on closets full of clothes, and like I said, wedding albums. I did a house with my friend actually about a year ago. And it was really weird. It was an old lady had lived there, and she didn't have electricity. She was running the house with oil lamps, and that had in the bedroom all the albums from the war and everything, and her late husband's war memorabilia. And I thought, wow, this is literally like a museum. And that was really weird because I did the research, and she had no family, and yet she owned the house. And yet now the house has been it's had work on it and another family living there. And I thought, but how did they get the house? Because they, who did she leave it to? So, yeah.
Well, we had a very similar and strange thing here in Sheffield. We had a sort of state-of-the-art hotel open in the 1960s called Halam Towers, Ben. And
Sure.
that just closed up in 2004. And that is one of those examples that we've mentioned, that the company just locked the building up, and they transferred a lot of the staff to another hotel that they'd opened in Sheffield city centre. And it kind of bounced around, people buying it and moving from one company to the other. It's only just been redeveloped after 18 years, but that was like a mirror into sort of 60s high chic hotel design, because it was all still beautifully decorated. It eventually became quite dilapidated, and unfortunately, somebody lost their life in there because they fell through a banister. But I think they were drunk when they sort of braved it, which is never a good idea, really.
Sure.
And so it was one of those things that until this chap had passed away, I'd lived within a mile of this building. I didn't even know it was abandoned. And you could see it on the skyline. You can see it now from where I am. If I go outside, I can look towards the hill in Broom Hill, and you can see it. But we just always assumed it was probably part of the university or something. The fact that it was an abandoned massive building. We're talking like 25 floors. Yeah, beautiful oak panelled lifts, all the original carpeting fixtures, all the tables and everything.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
The bar area and all that, it was all beautifully decorated. Just left. And it was just sat there for so long. Even though people owned it, Ben, and they just kind of thought, oh, well, we'll get round to it.
Yeah, but that happens more and more, even with the houses. Even if they are left with the family and they're falling apart, the family don't even want to sell them, they're not bothered. And then you think, well, why wouldn't you at least sell it, let somebody else have it, More money than sense, I think.
I know people who have property that they just won't sell, and that does seem to be the case. Yeah. It's a problem I wish I had.
Oh, wouldn't that be a great problem to have?
Yes, sir.
We all need that problem starting tomorrow.
Yeah. Going back to houses, there was a house that you've got on TikTok with a bunch of dolls in it.
Oh, my God. The Spanish doll's house.
Yeah. So that was Spain?
That was in Spain.
And you mentioned something that there's like all these legends have kind of grown up around the place in terms of like they believe that the house.
Yeah, amazing. It's one of the best houses. I say I don't really like houses. That was that was really an exception. I mean, I don't know if you saw the video, but that had thousands upon thousands probably a couple of thousand dolls there.
Wow, really, that many?
Every room was floor to ceiling. It was amazing, and the lady was a collector. And the story went that she lost her children and her husband, and she collected the dolls to cope with her grief. And soon enough, she had a house full of dolls, and she died in, I think, 2017, and the house has just been left, and it's slowly falling apart. The ceilings are collapsing, and the neighbours say that if anybody goes in the house and removes a doll, you'll be cursed. So that's why all the dolls have stayed.
Interesting. I just love that it's so instructive on how these things start, like how urban legends and how, these sort of like the Island of the Dolls in Mexico. I mean, that's sort of a famously haunted location, but I think a lot of it is just that people think dolls are creepy. So, the legend grows up around the true events as opposed to there being something actually, creepy there.
That was amazing. And some of the dolls, you could wind them up, and they would dance and play the tunes, and it was the weirdest thing. It was like something out of like a Stephen King novel. But that was amazing. That was a really, really special house.
We have some questions from our patrons for a little bit later, and there is one that sort of relates a little bit to the dollhouse in terms of like the creepiest thing you've seen. But we'll wait till the end for that. Another house I was curious about because I didn't quite grasp what was happening in the story was a house in Delaware that you were told belonged to the serial killer Stephen Pennell. Pennell, yeah. Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about that story?
So that was a couple of years ago. I did a diner, and I was given a house. House was amazing, wide open. Every room was furnished, but it was so much nice decay. And it had upstairs in one of the bedrooms all the dolls, and everything was as it was left. It still had 3 cars in the yard. Filmed it, and it had all the family photos. And as I was leaving, there was a neighbor outside and a sheriff's car, and I thought, oh, here we go. What's going to happen? And the sheriff was really nice, and the neighbor was nice, and they said, look, we don't mind you going in, but do you know who lived here? And I said, well, no, I just thought it was a house. And they said it was Stephen Pennell. And I thought, I don't know who that is. And they said, oh, he killed a bunch of women in his van, and that was one of his houses. And I had to Google it because, it wasn't Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or, anyone like that. And it turned out that the guy lived in Delaware. He had a van, and that was his house after he separated. And he killed women in quite a gruesome way. And then if you look back on the photos, you can see there's a picture of the guy when he was a bit younger on the mantle. That was actually one of my first big videos that took off. And there's a few articles in the newspaper about that. So that was that was amazing. And I still have requests now, people saying, oh, can you go back where the house is? I want to get some memorabilia. And I don't give random people places, but I think that place, people would have taken, the drinking glasses or something from there. But that was amazing. Like the room upstairs with the dolls and everything, that was really creepy. But I got a lot of stick for that. People saying, oh, it's not abandoned. It's like you can see the ceilings are lit. There was a clean I remember when I was in there, I undid a toilet paper to clean my lens. And people were adamant, oh, there's a clean toilet paper on the side. Somebody's living there. It's like, it's got no windows. Nobody's living in here. So, but no, that was amazing.
Pennell was a bit of a character, wasn't he?
Yeah, when you read into it,
when they arrested him, he said he wanted the death penalty.
Yeah, he just got straight
and
to
he wouldn't
business.
tell them why he'd done it or what he'd done it for. He just said, "Yeah, I've done it. Kill me."
I think there were more bodies that they suspected that they never found, but that's with like the Green River Killer and stuff. I don't think we'll ever know.
You mentioned police, and I'm curious. I know, again, I've heard you talk about this in other interviews.
Yeah.
That your experience with the police sort of it seems to vary. It obviously varies country to country, but I was actually surprised that it wasn't as severe in the U.S. as it has been in other places. Or is that not the case?
Yeah, just don't do it in Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
Just Pennsylvania just sucks. No. Well, the issue we have is in England, trespass is not a criminal matter; it's a civil matter. So if police come, they'll just ask you to leave. Whereas in America, obviously, trespassing is I don't think it's a felony, but it's an offence. So the issue you have it when it helps because I'm from England, because I could say, oh, I didn't know, in England it's not an issue. But I had police come in New Jersey, and the guy actually followed me on Instagram. He was like, just get your pictures and just, you shouldn't really be in there, but just, and he followed me and then he left me on my way. And in Spain, I was at a medical hospital, and I got a picture of it actually. Something like 12 police turned up, and they were mad. And they probably thought it were foreigners, this stupid non-speaking English person coming in, and they were okay, but that was quite scary because there was literally 12 of them. And then as regards to the States, me and some friends, we did a house. I knew I shouldn't have done the house because with houses, you always have issues. And it was in Pennsylvania. And my friend said, oh, we'll do a house. I said, oh, okay. And a few of us went into this house. And the only place we could park was outside it. And this was in rural Pennsylvania. So you could see the car from the road, but there was nowhere else to park. And taking the pictures in the house, I'm thinking, this feels off. And then the sheriffs turned up. And they were not friendly because they were like, look, you blatantly ignored the no trespassing signs. We're going to take you to jail. And we're like, okay, this isn't good. And in the end, it was okay. It was a fine, but it was still like $300. But one of the cops really wanted to take us to jail to teach us a lesson. And I thought, and the other cop was fine. It was like good cop, bad cop. And that's why I'm like, okay, just stay out of Pennsylvania. So that's really been the only time that there's been an issue. I think being British, I hope no cops are watching this, but it helps me get away with it a bit. They're going to have a picture of me in the police station. I'm like, don't listen to this guy. He knows what he's doing. But no, I'm very lucky because I know a lot of people have had a lot of issue with the police. But then again, I think it depends on the place. Like if you're doing a power station, military grounds, government places. But if you're doing a house and a funeral home, who really cares? And a lot of the neighbors can be a bit funny. But I remember I did a funeral home in New Jersey, and I couldn't get in, could not find a way into the funeral home. And there was just a guy, one of the neighbors, walking around smoking. And there was a top window, and I said, "Look, I really want to get in here." And I gave him $10, and he gave me a leg up in the window. So, he was happy, and I was happy. And please drove past that one, and they don't really mind. I think they have better things to do a lot of the time.
Yeah, especially New Jersey.
Yep. Oh, exactly. Okay. Sure.
In terms of he thought it was, I think because he's coming from the UK, he thought, oh, it's not a big deal. Him and his friends were arrested.
Okay.
And then he thought, well, it's not a big deal. And he didn't tell her, and I want to say 2 weeks before his court date. And it turned out that, no, this is whatever he had done. They marked it as criminal trespass. So it was actually, I think, a felony.
Yeah. I mean, a construction site, it's not, they might say, well, listen, it's not abandoned. People are working. There might be equipment left out, or you stealing, I mean, look, some people like construction because they can climb, but I think that's a bit different from arrested and an abandoned house or something,
Oh, but, very huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and it depends on the police as well. That guy might just be having a bad day and he just wants to take it out on someone. So it's all those factors included. So what happened in the end? He got a fine?
Well, she had to spend a lot of money on lawyers, because like his other friends, she found out that they had lawyered up, and that's when she realized, no, this is more serious than he had led her to believe.
Yeah.
He was in danger of losing his student visa because he was a student in the UK. He was going to somewhere in Colorado, and he did it to climb the crane. That was his thing, because he was one of those kids.
I've got friends that do that.
Oh, yeah. And, so it eventually, he got off. I think he got off with, a warning or something, but it was several $1,000s in legal fees to get him there.
Yeah. Well, he won't be doing that again, that's for sure.
Well, let's not go crazy. I mean, let's hope, but I'm not going to put money on that.
Yeah.
So before we get to the listener questions, I was curious because obviously shows Ghost Story Guys, and we typically talk about spooky things and strange things, and you've said in interviews that typically this has not been an issue for you, but you alluded to something that happened in a hospital in Italy that was strange, and I was curious to hear that story.
I still get goosebumps thinking about it, and I'm not really a believer, and the Italian asylum.
So what happened?
That's another video on my TikTok. We did an asylum. It's based on the PlayStation game Day of Light, and a lot of the asylums in Italy and Europe were notorious for mistreatment of patients. Misguided treatments and just cruelty. And me and my friends, we were looking for a way into this asylum for 2 hours. It was like a fortress. I mean, it was really hard. They'd gone to town on keeping people out. But when you're in there, it was very secure, as in there was no holes in the roof. There were no open windows. It was very, very secure. And we did the patient rooms, and they all had typically bars on the window, no open windows, and metal beds. We're on the top floor. We did bedroom, 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 because you check each room. And as we left one room, we were literally in the next. And clear as day, when I don't know if you know what I mean. When you know what a sound is made by. Clear as day, we were 5 feet from the room we just come in, and we heard what is the only explanation is a fist banging down on a bed frame 5 times, very hard, very aggressively. You know what it is, somebody hitting a bed, and you were like, okay, and we stopped, and we looked back, and we're like, okay. And we went back in the room. There wasn't a bird. There wasn't, like I said, this place wasn't open to the elements. There was no birds. There was nothing that would have made the noise. And we left and we thought, okay, we'll probably just go. And we had just the longest walk back to the car, and we just kind of agreed we just wouldn't talk about it. But
Right.
it was horrible. And it wasn't, a lot of people could say, oh, maybe it was debris or a bird. There was nothing in this place. And for me to say that, because I've been in these funeral homes and everything, and I've never had an issue, that was terrifying. And that was the only thing. It was without doubt in my mind, it was a fist smacking down. And it wasn't like there were other people in there. There was nobody else in this place. We went back in the room. These were cells designed for patients. This wasn't like anybody could do it and run off. So yeah, I'm glad that we left. But what an experience.
No kidding. I mean, to have it happen 5 times too, I mean, that's significant. Like, you can say someone dropped from a ceiling once, maybe twice, but 5 times in succession, that's difficult to write off.
Yeah. After this, I'll message my friend who was with me and I'll say, oh, do you remember that? And he'll just be like, I don't want to talk about that. Let's not.
I mean, that's not uncommon with people who have weird experiences. We're pretty, I think agnostic is the wrong word, but we obviously, Paul and I believe in these things. We've had our own experiences, but not necessarily in the standard, someone died here and their spirit remains and so on and so forth. We just kind of like to say that, the world is a lot stranger than we probably think.
Correct. And I think there's a lot that we don't know.
Yeah.
And people can have conversations and opinions, but we don't know anything really about the other side or what lays behind. Hopefully we'll never know.
That's exactly it. I'm certainly in no hurry to find out myself. One more question, just for me personally, again, before we get to the patron questions.
Sure.
A while back, I saw a film called Castle Falls.
Sure.
Which was shot in turned out to be shot in the Caraway Methodist Medical Center, which is an abandoned hospital in Alabama.
Good. I love Alabama.
Yeah. Have you been to that particular hospital?
I haven't been to that hospital, but I know of it.
So I watched an Urbex video on YouTube of someone checking out this place, and they got a little bit freaked out, not by anything paranormal, but it appeared to be that there was a group of men in there possibly stripping copper.
Yes, scrappers.
Scrappers, yeah. And I mean, that seems like a real possible danger, depending on the caliber of person you're running into stripping copper. Have you ever had a moment like that where you've thought, I don't know if I necessarily feel safe, or you've run into someone who's doing that kind of thing in a place?
Yeah, it happens a lot in the hospitals because they take the copper from the ceilings and the pipes.
Right.
I did a school. I mean, your schools are huge, and this was a high school in Connecticut. And I haven't done a video on it, but this place was ginormous. And it had everything left. And bumped into a couple of explorers there, and they said, oh, yeah, there's scrappers in here as we speak. Okay. And apparently some of them can be very aggressive, and some of them, as long as you leave them alone, are okay. And I came across the guy, and he was literally collecting the padlocks off all the lockers and putting them in a bucket. Hundreds of them, hundreds upon hundreds. And I said, how much are you going to get for this? And he was like, $5 a padlock. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he walked up the hallway, and I still remember he turned around to me, and he said, just so you know, he said, if you follow me or you call the cops, he said, I'm going to stab you and leave you here to die. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to go up here and take some pictures. So, yeah, that was the only experience that I ever had. But I think in some of the big places I do hear there are some scrappers. I mean, look, even the funeral homes. I went to one. Somebody came and they took all the caskets. You see on my videos, people comment, "Where's this? I want to take the caskets." They're, $2,000, $4,000, $5,000. It'll save me buying one to be buried in. So I think it's opportunists as well. So, but that's the only experience I've had. But that was a big site. When you're going into a funeral home, there's not really enough. But I always do when I go into a place. I always call out. The first thing I do, I call out, and I say, if anyone's here, I'm just taking photographs. It's all good, because I don't want to come around the corner and bump into anybody.
Yeah, continue. If you're doing your drug deals, I'm not going to interrupt you.
I'm not interested in that. I just want my photos.
Yeah. So yeah, before we let you go, I mean, we could keep talking to you for forever. I actually was shocked to see the 45 minutes had gone by. Do you have a few minutes to answer some patron questions?
Of course.
Perfect. So our patron Rin wants to know, what was the scariest thing you've experienced? I have to wonder if being threatened with a stabbing might qualify, but tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I did a funeral home quite recently, actually. I mean, yeah, the scariest thing, obviously, the scrapple was bad. When you find human remains, that's pretty bad. But I went to look at a funeral home recently in Florida, and went in, and I thought this place is empty. Went in, there was a woman asleep inside, and I said, "Look, I'm just taking some pictures. Are you okay?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." And then I kept looking, and I was trying to find the prep room where with the slab. It's my favorite thing. And I went in there, and there was about 4 guys in there, like cooking, obviously drugs, meth, whatever. And I kind of stopped dead in my tracks, and I thought, okay, slowly backing out, and one of these guys lets out like a massive kind of growling sound, and I literally, it's one of the only times I turned around and I just ran. I thought, yeah, I'm not going to do a video in here.
Oh wow!
So a lot of people can say, scary is in paranormal. Yeah, you've got the Italian hospital, but I mean, I have this saying. I think the dead. There's no reason to be afraid of the dead. It's the living that can hurt you.
Oh yeah.
And that was an example. I mean, I don't know what these guys would have done, but that was one I was glad I didn't stay for.
If it was a meth lab, nothing good is the answer.
Yeah.
Like that running was the right choice.
Yeah, I had a friend that was checking out a funeral home for me in Alabama, and he was driving his van, and I still remember the voice note from him. He drove up to it. I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and he said this was like something out of a horror film. He just sees this black figure coming out towards the van, full pelt, like the T-1000 from Terminator 2.
Oh man!
And Eric said to me, he said, this guy didn't know I wasn't in a van full of guys. This guy was running, and this guy was running to do something. And he said he just reversed it, and he hightailed it out of there. And he was looking in the rear view, and the guy was still running towards him. And he was like, dude, he said, I don't care if that's the best funeral home, I'm not going back there.
Nope.
And you think, who was this guy? Why running? What was he going to do? So
I remember hearing a story. These two, a father and son, I think it were on a boating trip.
Yeah.
And they were like canoeing down a river, and they realized that a portion of that river, basically they ended up being pursued by guys because they obviously had either a grow up back when marijuana was illegal or a meth lab or something. But they were going to put into this particular place for the night, and they couldn't. And they ended up, I think, staying on the river for about a full day and a half, 2 days, because they needed to get the hell away from these lunatics who were just pursuing them downriver. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, we think of these abandoned spaces as abandoned, right? Like, oh, they're, I can get up to whatever I want here. But there are a lot of other folks who get up to things that require no witnesses who also are aware of these spots.
I was in Jasper in Alabama, and went to a house, looked amazing, like something out of American Horror Story, and was walking up, and I still remember this guy who was like 6'5", a big vest, and he had a shotgun, and he came out. He said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing TikTok at the abandoned house. I'm just waiting for a friend." And he took the shotgun out and he put it in his hands, and he said, "Okay." He said, "Maybe you want to go and wait for your," because I didn't tell him that I was there for the house. I said, "Oh, I'm waiting," and he said, "Okay." And he said, "Maybe you should go and wait somewhere else." And he gave me this menacing look, and then these 2 guys came out from the house, and I thought, okay, and I think it was like a trap house or something, because there's no way they were living there. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I got back in the car. I remember I said to my friend, "Why did you send me here?" That was a recommendation. Like, you're trying to get me killed. Something out of Breaking Bad. So yeah, lots of Alabama, lots of these houses, I think a lot of them can be used for that. Trap houses, you have got to be careful. That's why if you do houses, I normally always like to do them after I know somebody's been for that specific reason.
Right.
Because even like the outskirts of, Mississippi and stuff, you see a house, you think, oh, that's definitely abandoned, broken windows and everything, and somebody's living in there. And it's not like a trap house, it's just like a hermit who lives like that, something out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, yeah, you've got to be careful.
So that sort of leads into my next question, which this may have already been answered then. This comes from Alyssa. She said, has there ever been a place that creeps you out in a something bad happened here kind of way? Not necessarily paranormal, just an eerie, bad feeling.
Yeah, I mean, the Steve Pennell house had a very, very bad feel to it. And that's before I met the sheriff and he told me.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of places do have a real feeling. And I remember I did a funeral home in the Carolinas, and that's gone now. It's the one on my TikTok with the white hearses outside, the Rolls Royces. It took me a long time to get in there, and I cracked a rib getting in there, incidentally.
Oh, man.
And I remember I was in there, and I thought, you know what, I don't want to do this. I still remember it. I couldn't put my finger on it. I just had the worst feeling of dread in that place, and I thought, this is just, I got to be really quick in here. And I could never put my finger on it. And I remember walking down the hallway towards the chapel of rest and the embalming room. And I thought, did I see something corner of my? No, you didn't. Just do your video, do your pictures. And I got out of there and I could not wait to leave. It was just the worst feeling of dread. And then I found out, the family messaged me that the owner had been found dead, apparently by natural causes, in the embalming room. He'd had a heart attack, I think. And there was a room in there full of caskets. And his casket was in there that he was promised that he would have been buried in. And he wasn't buried in it. And the weird thing is, they'd gone around and nailed wood. They'd nailed wood to all the doors from the inside, apparently to stop his spirit escaping. And I thought, oh, but then I do remember being in there, and it was a horrible feeling of dread in there. I still remember it. I couldn't wait. And normally when I'm in a funeral home, I'm like a child in a sweet shop. This one I did not like.
I remember that video, and I was wondering why they would want to keep his spirit there. That seemed strange.
Yeah, I know. Apparently, he loved the funeral home. I think he wants to be there when he dies. The weirdest thing. Apparently, they nailed the wood to keep him inside. It's the weirdest thing. But I had the family message me about that, and they said, yeah, it's true. So, bizarre.
I'm not sure what's stranger, that or the woman who had the breakdown and said the dead were coming back to life.
The best funeral home, Kingstree. That's gone now, so I can name that. Yeah, she I think she's still alive. She's in an institution now. She had a breakdown and said that the dead were apparently coming back to life. That was the one with the hearses and the pink casket.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That everybody said, oh, I bought the casket there. I'm like, no, I didn't. Yeah. But that's all been cleared out now. That's going to be a drug rehabilitation center.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, she said the dead were coming back to life. She had a breakdown, and it sat empty for about 6 years. I think the IRS took it for non-payment of taxes, and now it's been sold. But yeah, that was the neighbors were really nice there. But they said, yeah, she was just going mad. They don't know whether it was the chemical she was working with or it was just a mental illness. But that was quite sinister as well.
Interesting. So, and the next question we have from Caitlin is along similar lines. Was there a place that had you felt more story hanging in the air than any other?
More story, as in stuff to know what happened there.
Yeah, a place where you felt like this is really a lived-in place. This was really it really gave you a sense of what it had been.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in all the places were like that, but I did a funeral home that was actually a family home as well upstairs, and that was really weird because it had all the living quarters upstairs, and it still had a newspaper of the owner's obituary on the dining table.
Oh,
and I thought, So you've read the newspaper from, I think, 2005. You put the newspaper down, you've locked the doors, you never come back. And I thought, that's really weird. Did you close the day that the owner's funeral was? And then it turned out that his was the last funeral that they had there. And apparently the family never wanted to go back. And they just locked it up one day and they left. That had all the caskets, like 100 caskets in the outbuilding. It was amazing. That's really amazing. I have to put that video up. And that interested me a lot because obviously I thought, well, this isn't, I couldn't figure out the dates and everything, and I had to do a lot of research for that. But I think it's fair to say that's with any place. You always want to find out a bit more about a story, about what happened, and whether that's the hospital or the certificates or anything. You
Right.
always want to find out more. They've always got more stories to tell.
Right. Okay. So next question, and this is actually something I would have asked earlier on, but I knew that Selena had put this here. So she said, this is a super practical question. How do you risk assess a place before entering? By that, I mean, how do you know it's not going to collapse in some way?
That's a good question. I should actually do risk assessments, and the truth is, I wouldn't say I don't, but you generally, when you've been doing it long enough, you kind of figure out what to look for. Weak floors, asbestos, stuff like that. I wouldn't really go into places that look like they're. Well, I say that, but the mortuary I did in Washington was literally falling down. You know what? I probably take more risks than I should. But at the same time, you've got to be sensible. And if you think something isn't worth a risk, then you don't leave. No injury is worth a TikTok video or an Instagram post. So I think you literally just play it by ear. If you think the floors are weak, go around the outside. Try and tread lightly. Just play it by ear when you go in. But at the same time, never do a place at night. I don't do a place at night anyway. Fear of homeless, scrappers, or that
Sure.
for a reason. And generally, just take your time. A lot of people will run into a place and they'll rush in and they'll fall down a hole. So just take your time. Make sure you take a flashlight. Make sure that you kind of go in daylight. And I think any hobby is going to have a risk. So you just got to be as safe as possible. Always take a couple of plasters with you as well. First aid is really important.
Do you let people know where you're going, Ben, or if you do them alone, or do you often team up and do them with a partner for that precise reason?
I don't really do them alone for that exact reason, because if you go to a place and fall down a hole, how's anyone going to know where you are? Safety in numbers. So no, I generally always go with a friend for that specific reason. One of my friends, he goes at night on his own. I think he's crazy. He goes in these funeral homes on his own at night. I think it could be anybody in there. He's like, no, it's fine. But no, going back to that question earlier as well, that's always the thing. Make sure that people know where you are and don't go on your own, because some of these places, you think you're in like rural. I remember doing a house in Georgia, and it was in the most rural part. And I almost got caught by the owner, but I didn't, luckily. He caught me 2 minutes after I left the house. And I thought, you could get taken from any of these places, your phone thrown in a river. Nobody will ever see you again. So that's why safety in numbers is good. Just to be on the safe side.
I remember years ago, my cousin found out about these parcels of land that had been owned by cattle farmers.
Sure.
Or cattle ranchers, I guess, outside the town of Kamloops, BC. And this larger company had bought up all this land, and everyone had just left. So all this stuff was left out there, the houses, the cars, all the farming equipment.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So we drove out there, and I've got a few pictures of the place. It was very, very cool, but I just could not, for the safety reason, I could not bring myself to go into the houses, because I'm not a light person. And I just pictured myself, there was no cell signal. And I just pictured myself plummeting through the floor of this abandoned house, and having, aside from my cousin, going, well, I guess I'll drive 2 hours back to town and try and find someone to help you. Not a real compelling option.
That were the visions that you had.
Yeah. All right. So next question comes from Jen. And Jen wants to know, what's your take on the way Urbex or Urbex adjacent things are portrayed in film? She says, for context, I saw 47 Meters Down 2, which I do not recommend, she says. I actually quite like that movie, Jen.
Yeah.
but they explore and destroy a significant archaeological site in the film. And obviously fiction film, but that is one of the ways that Urbex is portrayed. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like that in the media. If you read some of the comments and some of the articles, people think, oh, explorers, trespassers, burglars, that kind of thing. And I think a lot of the issue is if you get, like, neighbours will come out, oh, what are you doing in the house? We're taking photos. No, you're not. I'm going to call the police. You're stealing. I think a lot of people don't understand what Urbex is. It's documenting places via video or anything. And they think, oh, no, you're in here to steal or destroy a place or smash a place up. And I think there's not really enough of the real hobby shown in the media.
Right.
I haven't seen 47 meters down 2. I didn't even know there was a second one. I haven't even seen the first. But it must have had a good audience to get a second one. But that's the issue. Like, for example, in that they destroy a site, whatever. And I think that's the problem. I think a lot of people think that, they see a bunch of people going into a place. They're up to no good. That house in Pennsylvania, the police were called, that we got caught at because people were using it to do meth. So
Right.
I think there's not really enough understanding about what the hobby is. People don't understand it. I think, well, why do you want to take pictures of something? Well, because I want to document it. Yeah, but why? So I think that there's not really enough knowledge about the hobby, especially in the media, and people just kind of presume the worst of it. And it's a shame because there are people that will go and destroy things and take things and do this and that. And there's that saying, the small number ruin it for everybody else. And
Sure.
unfortunately, that is true. I don't feel if there was more, maybe if there was a bit more understanding in the media, people would be a bit more open to it. But I still think, my stepmother said to me, the worst person. I said, you're the worst person. If my neighbour died and I saw people climbing in the window, I would call the police. And I remember I said to her, you're the worst person to say that. I hate, as a joke. But
Right.
it's, and she knows my hobby. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's just a generation thing as well. But
Fair enough.
I will check out that film.
I mean, yeah, just on a totally, 47 meters down is solid. And the second one, yeah, it's not bad. It's not as good as the first, but they're both directed by Johannes Roberts, who just,
Okay,
he's just got a great visual sense. So especially the first one there's a couple really just brilliant shots. Like
I will check it and let you know.
He did a terrible movie set in Ireland about a giant bird, like a rock or something. This like mythical bird killing a bunch of people, and it was made for Sci-Fi Channel, but there's a couple of really just beautiful shots, and you think this guy is punching way below his weight. But anyways,
there we go. That's for another night.
Don't get me started talking about horror movies. All right, so last question comes from Robin, and again, we may even have answered this, but she says, "What's the most surprising thing you found in a location? Something you never would have guessed was there?"
Well, I think a lot of that comes back to obviously the stuff in the Paris morgue. The brain, the bones, the liver and lungs. Human ashes is always amazing. But that's actually a good question because I didn't cover this. After I did the Paris morgue, some reporters actually went and they said, "Oh, can we interview about the morgue?" I said, "Yeah, okay." And they didn't really speak very good English, and I did this kind of not really knowing interview about it. And they went, they found out where it was. They went and they video called me and they said, "Did you look in the white bucket in the basement?" And there was brains and everything in there. And I said, "No." And they showed me it and they said, "Look, we cannot publish this." And they said, "You could never publish this." And I said, "Okay." And it was a full term fetus in a white bucket in chemicals. And I still got a picture on my phone, and I was like, I'm glad I didn't see that. But I thought, why is that there? That's, and in the end, the place did get cleared out. So that was probably, even though I didn't find that was there, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. I mean, I couldn't have posted that anyway. I would have got absolutely crucified on social media, and was really disrespectful. But that is still at the same time something quite weirdly amazing. How does that happen? I mean,
Yeah, so, that's something else. And that would have been a nightmare on social media.
Oh my God, I probably would have been banned. I mean, I can't do lives on TikTok now. I'm banned from doing lives, which is really annoying.
Why is that?
I did a live in the Spanish hospital. And you know how it is when you do lives, you can't necessarily help what you're gonna see.
Sure.
And I was filming the offices, and I did the mortuary, did the offices, and there was an adult magazine on the side from one of the offices, and it wasn't even open; it was just on the cover. And I literally scanned it, and I said, oh, "If anybody's lost a magazine, it's here." Making a joke. Literally, I scanned over the cover, and the covers, unfortunately, I'm joking, but they don't show anything. You can just tell it's Playboy or whatever. And
Right.
the live got suspended, and they're like,
"Oh
somebody
man,
reported it for graphic material, and I appealed, and I said, look, I've never had a warning, I've never had this happen. I'll make sure I'm more careful, but when you're doing a live, you can't always help this kind of thing." And TikTok were just like, no, that's it. And I thought, wait, you don't even get a warning? It's like a one strike, and that was really annoying, because you'll go on TikTok now and you'll see some people advertising some services, should we say, and that sort of thing. And I think, well, hang on, that's allowed, but mine isn't. And I thought, I've got quite a big account on there, so I would like to be reinstated on that, because I really like doing those. But yes, that was very annoying.
yeah, that would. I've heard so many stories about that. There's a podcast I listen to, and they do the news essentially. They cover the news, and they'll play clips, and they'll talk about the clips.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about some anti-vaccine idiot.
Yeah.
And they were poking holes in his argument, and their channel was suspended for spreading vaccine misinformation.
Really?
Despite the fact that they were talking about this guy. They were
And
covering
this was
the
on
clip.
TikTok?
No, this was on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No warning. There was really no appeals process.
Yeah. Well, this is how it was with TikTok. I thought, fair enough, give me a warning. Now, if I try and go live, it says you cannot go live due to multiple violations. So I'm thinking, it was one time. Give me a break. At least give me a warning.
Yeah,
that's
to me.
Insane.
So
I did an interview 3 years ago, and we were talking about a specific hotel in Wisconsin, and it's a very well-known hotel, and it's used by the Milwaukee Brewers baseball team to host the away team, and a lot of players won't stay in it because it's haunted. And so we were talking about this hotel, and then I just got an email saying we've taken it down for illegal content, and I was like, what? Because I've done, I don't know, 270 interviews by this point, Ben, and we have the occasional swear word, as happens in a conversation, but nothing explicit or anything. And the only thing I could work out was this name of a hotel. If you were really stupid or just an algorithm, you would assume it might be talking about a certain sexual reference. But it's not. It's a well-known hotel. It's what it's called. You can't call it something else. So I removed any mention of it, and they allowed it. So I can only assume that they have some kind of system that picks up offensive terms or sexual connotation. And even I tried explaining it, nothing. They upheld it, and I've had a strike ever since.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I've seen some things on TikTok about people who are advertising services, should we say, subscription-based. And I think, well, hang on a minute, that's allowed, and that is frustrating, but what can you do?
There was a really great piece, and we won't dwell on this because obviously we'll wind it up here, but there was a really great piece, and I want to say like The Atlantic or something, about this problem with Instagram. They'll go after you for certain things, but there is a thriving community of people on there who are exploiting kids.
Yes.
And it's well known. They, again, they've got an algorithm that can hunt a nipple down like they're the Terminator looking for Sarah Connor. But this happens right under their nose. It's one of the most frustrating things about social media, and that's saying something, because social media is a deeply frustrating topic generally.
It is.